visą, labai paprastai, draugiškai žygį, labai malonu jūs vėl matyti po tokio ganėtinai ilgo laiko, vėlgi mes gyvai čia kartu sėdim. Kaip jaučiatės, kokios emocijos, ar vasariškos, ar geros, ar kaip tik gal prastos?
Tokios 50-50 džiaugiuosi, Vincentai, kad subūrei čia daug jaunų krikščionių demokratų, konservatorių, su kuriais bendrausim Seime iš Baltijos šalių, iš visos Europos, gražiai būri jaunimą vardan Europos. O jeigu taip trumpai, na ką, tik ką vyko, kai kas sako, istorinis Hagos samitas, na gal jis ir istorinis dėl to, kad neįvyko skyrybos su Trumpu, gal jis ir istorinis dėl to, kad įsipareigota tiem 5%, bet tas atidėjimas termino iki 35 metų yra keistas, nes, na, kaip mano grupiokas vienas pajuokavo, tai Putinas dabar tikrai palauks 35 metų ir tada jau mūsų atakuos. Bet tai, kad dingo Ukraina iš eterio, mane labai neramina, kad taip sunkiai keli žodžius mes įstenėjom dėl Ukrainos, Putinas tai žino ir jaučia, tas pats vyksta Europos Sąjungoje, stringa dėrybos, jas blokuoja vengrai, bet ne tik vengrai, manau, už jų nugarų dar kažkas stovi ir nieko nevyksta toliau. Nežinom, kai baigsis Ukrainos parama karinė Ukrainai, kuris senka, ar amerikiečiai ją atnaujins, ar bent parduos. Daug baisiai nežinomybių ir man dėl to ta vasara yra nerami. O dar pridėkime kelis kitus neramumus, mažesnio masto, bet susijusius. Sakartvele masiškai sodinami opozicionieriai, faktiškai visi mano draugai arba sėda, arba jiems keliamos bylos, komandoro ordinus, geriausius ordinus gavę, žvalgai, gynybininkai sėda į kalėjimus. Moldovui vyksta kova, už savaitės vyksta į Moldovą, kur rugsėjį vyks esminiai rinkimai. Jeigu ir ten ateis rusai, kaip iš esmės jų statytiniai atėjo Tbilisį, liūdni popieriai, pridėkime Ukrainą, pridėkime dar tokiam jau niūresniam paveikslui pabrėžti, kad ta vasara tokia saldi neatrodytų generolą Kelogą apsikabinėjantį diktatorių Lukašenką. Tik ką premjeras Palubinskas pasakė, kad čia nieko blogo, kad diktatorius apsikabinėja. Tai tas vaizdas yra liūdnas ir dar pridėkime, kad mūsų vyriausybė iš esmės neįgali užsienio politikui be atskirų ministrų, kuriems pagarba už veiklumą, tačiau jeigu tu neturi politinio užnugario, tai tas veiklumas yra daugiau toksai, na, vardan iškabos ar nuotraukų. Taip.
Aš gal mažiau diplomatiškai pasakysiu, bet aš tikrai irgi jaučiu tą patį pesimizmą. Turiu pasakyti, kad pasaulis neatrodo labai toks šviesus ir geras, kaip mes norėtume manyti. Ir belieka įsikibti į tą pačią viltį, kaip sakant, viltis miršta paskutinė. Bet negaliu pasakyti, kad vis dar turi labai daug vilties. Iš tiesų, kad žiūrėsi tą pačią Moldovą, matome, kaip kiekvieną dieną Kremlius kiša nagus į visą šitą medijos procesą, į žmonių visą informacinį burbulą, ten sukasi visada Kremlius. Mes lygiai tą patį matome ir savo tuos vadinamus socmedijų feeduose, to informacijų srovėjai, kur tiesą pasakius po visų veiksmų Izraelyje ir artimuosiuose rytuose, aš Ukrainos nebematau savo nei Instagrame, nei Facebook'e. Man reikia aktyviai ieškoti naujienų, žiniasklaidos ir panašiai, ir viską dabar pakeitė Izraelio reikalas. Ir man yra baisu, kad kai paprasti žmonės, paprasti piliečiai, nebūtinai susijęs su politika ar su tokia aktyvia pilietinė veikla, jie jau nebematys kiekvieną dieną tų baisių, ne tik dronų, bet ir šitų balistinių raketų išpuolių Ukrainoje, Kijeve, kur kasdieną miršta vis daugiau ir daugiau ne tik kariškių, bet ir civilių, kur padėtis fronte nėra tikrai itin gera. Man yra baisu, kad pilietinė visuomenė šitas reikalas beveik užsimirš ir kad judėsim toliau prie kitos problemos, ar tai būtų tie patys artimieji rytai ar dar kažkokia naujiena iš Trampo pasaulio, anapus Atlanto.
Pritariu ir matai, muzika šiais laikais susako, mylim ar nemylim Trumpas. Jam turėjo įsiteikti visas Hagos NATO samitas ir Trumpas, kaip matome, nemyli Ukrainos taip, kaip mes ją mylim. Ar jisai myli Putiną daugiau, turbūt taip. Ir va čia yra didžiausia bėda. Jeigu per šią vasarą, o atrodo, kad taip ir bus, Trumpas neįvestų triuškinančių garsiųjų sankcijų ir jeigu tą pačią vasarą jis įves tarifus europiečiams, na tada nežinau, kokių akinių reikia, kad nesuprast fakto, kad jisai daro viską, kad Rusijai būtų geriau, kad jinai gautų visus gerus, pozityvius signalus, iš esmės kaip paskatinimas toliau okupuoti. Ir, pavyzdžiui, dar vienas esminis sprendimas, kuris laukia vasarą, karių atitraukimas. Jeigu gerai suprantu, apie 20 000 karių gali būti atitraukta. Aš primenu, kad yra tas pats skaičius karių, kuriuos Bidenas įvedė į Europą, tam, kad Putinui pasiųstų aišku signalą, net nebandyk. Kai Krymas buvo paimtas, Bidenas čia lėktuvus atsiuntė. Tai jeigu toks pats skaičius bus išvestas, tai ko dar reikia Putinui, kad jis patikėtų, kad jis gali daryti, ką nori. Tai nereiškia, kad mes jam leisim daryti, ką nori. Europiečiai yra tikrai dėl to, galų galia tas įsipareigojimas dėl 5%, ką padarė europiečiai su jų biudžetais pasiskolinusiais, socialistiškais, išpūstom pensijom, tai yra gan didelis įsipareigojimas. Aš tikiuosi, jie nepamelavo, kaip kad Velse, bet pavyzdžiui, tokie vokiečiai aš jais tikiu. Bet vis tiek, jeigu aš būčiau Putinas, man kaip tik ši vasara būtų labiausiai viliojanti, nes po metų ar po 2 Europa bus stipresnė. Ir jau artės Amerikos rinkimai, ir jau pažiūrėsim, kas vidutinės tos trukmės rinkimuose įvyks Amerikoje. Žiūrėkim, kas vyksta Niujorke, taip sakant, kokie merai ateina. Tai, žodžiu, aš sakyčiau taip, kadangi nėra vaizdas pesimistiškas, mums verta ginkluotis dvigubai.
Absoliučiai.
Ta prasme, tai, ką mes dabar pasižadėjom, neužtenka. Ir Ukrainos parama, ir mūsų parama, mes turim dvigubai, trigubai ginkluotis, kad neįvyktų blogiausias scenarijus.
Žinau ką, aš gal čia toks labiau provokatyvus dalykas būtų, bet iš tiesų, ką mes pamatėm įdomaus per visą situaciją artimuosiuose rytuose, buvo būtent tai, kad Rusija niekur nesėdėjo, negynė nei savo geriausios draugės Iraną tam regione, nieko iš esmės nekomentavo, kažką ten gal pasakė apie tarptautinę teisę, kurią jie taip kabutėse mėgsta ginti ir panašiai, ar ne, bet matėme ir aš mačiau kai kurias antraštės net, kad dabar rusai turi mokytis būti jau ne tik dėmesio centre, bet ir nebesvarbus regionai. Jie prarado jau Siriją, dabar jau mes matome, koks Iranas yra ganėtinai bejėgis ir tokių pajėgumų nebeturi. Ir tik bijau, kad nebūtų tas pats Trumpas, kuris iš esmės duoda tiems patiems rusams tą išsigelbėjimo, tą plūdurą, žinau.
Aš pritariu ir mano reakcija pirma buvo tokia pat kaip tavo, įskaitant tada, kai Amerika jau tas giluminės bombas paleido į Iraną, aš džiaugiausi, nes taip eliminuojamas milžiniškas Rusijos sąjungininkas. Tačiau mane suneramino viena Trumpo remarka, man atrodo, jis ją pasakė važiuojant į Hagos samitą, kad man labai padėjo Putinas susitvarkyti su Iranu. Tai paprastai, kai padedi, tai už kažką. Aš labiausiai bijau sandėrio, kad tas sumažėjus dėmesys Ukrainai ir parama nebūtų sumažėjęs dėmesys ir mums. Blogai, kad pavyzdžiui NATO samite neįvyko susitikimas Baltijos šalių lyderis su Trumpu. Lenkai susitiko, kiti lyderiai susitiko, Duda pasimatė, bet mes ne. Anksčiau tai buvo įprastinė formulė. JAV prezidentas priartėja prie Baltijos šalių lyderių, nuramina mus, sako, viskas tvarkoj, duosim čia tos paramos, bet tai rusams signalas. Dabar mūsų nėra niekur, mes nesusitinkam su Amerika, mūsų nėra tose formatuose europietiškose, kur vyksta procesai, tai ar nebus tai, na, čia toks blogiausias variantas, bet mes juos turim skaičiuoti politikoj, ar tas Ukrainos galimas pardavimas nėra ir Baltijos šalių pardavimas. Čia gal labai konservatoriška toks nuogąstavimas, bet mes kaip žydai turim būti pasiruošę blogiausiam scenarijui. Jeigu mes girdim grasinimą, jeigu mes matom vis mūsų istorijos knygas tokio pat formato, nes su tais pačiais autoriais, kurie buvo spausdinami prieš Ukrainos karą, jeigu mes matome tos zapadus, mes turim būti pasiruošę. Ir tuo labiau, kai vidury šitų pasiruošimų atleidžiami kariniai žvalgai, be jokio paaiškinimo, nesuprantant, kas čia vyksta, lygiai kaip mes tos karinius žvalgus turėjom rusam atiduoti prieš okupaciją. Gal aš per daug gąsdinu, bet...
Aš manau, kad yra labai teisingai, ypač šiuo metu, ne tai, kad gąsdint, bet įspėti apie tai, kas gali būti ir tai, kas tikriausiai atsitiks, jeigu mūsų valdžia nesusiims ir nepradės imtis tų veikiamų ar diplomatinių, ar apskritai užsienio politikos formavimo, neberims šito vadovavimo rimto, nes ką dabar mes matom, tai yra vėlgi tie patys keli ministrai, Budys visai normaliai veikia, ministrė Šakalienė tikrai, manau, yra nebloga krašto apsaugos ministrė ir aišku, mes turime labai aktyvę opoziciją, jūs, gerimas Žygi, keliaujate į užsienį, skanduojate už Lietuvą ir ginat mūsų interesus, bet dėja to nepakanka, nes mes jau nebesam toj pozicijoje. Tai gal patarkit, ką gali platesnė visuomenė, pilietinė visuomenė, ką gali žmonės daryti, iš esmės ruoštis, ne tik ginti savo kraštą, bet ir kasdieniam gyvenime, kaip ruoštis atstoti Lietuvą ir ginti savo kraštą.
Tiesiog sureikšmint viską, kas vyksta, sureikšmint, būt pasiruošusiam, nes pažiūrėjau dabar į tave, Vincentai, ir prisimenu savo 4 sūnų, irgi Vincentą, kuris gimė prieš 16 metų, kai buvo lygiai tokia pat vasara. Buvo šilta ir gera, ir visi mes atostogavom. Ir staiga Rusija įsiveržė į Sakartvelą, aš pavadinu savo vaiką Vincentu, nes aš noriu, kad Kartvelai laimėtų, bet mes žinom, kas įvyksta ir mes matome to paties Sakartvelo paveikslą dabar. Tai ne tik, kad teritorijas atimė dabar ir Tbilisį ima, politiškai ima. Ir tas mūsų nesureikšminimas, man tai yra panašu į tokį Vilniaus politinį ėmimą. Galų gale tos komisijos desovietizacijos panaikinimas per trėmimų dieną, signalas, tai yra vos ne toks kaip signalas Maskvai iš Vilniaus, draugiškas, mes su jumis, mes jūs suprantame, mes čia su tais konservais tvarkomės. Palucko atsakymai šiandien iš tribūnos, jis tiesiog ignoruoja mūsų klausimus, jisai iš mūsų šaiposi. Nereikia viens iš kito šaipytis. Lietuva gali atsidurti pavojuje, kaip atsidūrė ir Sakartvelas, ir Ukraina, ir Moldova gali neseniai, Rumunija neseniai išvengė to smūgio. Tai laikykimės visi kartu ir sureikšminkim. Visą vasarą sureikšminkim, kol mes neturėsim tokių raumenų kaip žydai, kurie gali kariauti 4 kartus iš visų pusių. Nėra jį labai didelė tauta, kaip ir Suomija, turinti didžiausią artileriją Europoje. Ginkluokimės ir sureikšminkim. Vienintelis mano receptas ir aišku, ruoškimės tam karui, tam, kad jo nebūtų.
Absoliučiai, aš dar pridėčiau, kad yra svarbu per vasarą neleisti tai pagundai paleisti telefonų ar išjungti televizorius. Nesvarbu yra žiūrėti tą žiniasklaidą kiekvieną dieną, yra svarbu matyti, kas darosi pasaulyje aplink mumis, ir reikia žinoti, kas darosi su mūsų valstybės, mūsų tauta ir vis dėlto su ta pačia mūsų ateitimi, kur eina, kur krypsta visas šitas laivas, kad jeigu ką mes kaip piliečiai, mes kaip visuomenė žinotume, kur ir kada ateiti, išreikšti savo nuomonę, išreikšti, kad kad mums nepatinka, kur plaukia tas pats mūsų laivas ir kad mes norime, kad būtų rimti pokyčiai, bent kažkoks sureikšminimas, vėlgi tos pačios užsienio politikos, gynybos politikos ir panašiai. Mes manom reikia.
Manau, taip, laikykimės ir netgi patarimas kairiesiems, kurie renka ir galbūt mūsų klauso tos pačius socdemus, ar dar toliau kitiems, na, rinkite tokius, kurie sureikšmina. Gyvename tikrai sunkiais laikais. Jeigu matot, kad jūsų vadai daro nesąmonės, tai tikrai tarp jūsų yra garbingų žmonių, garbingų kairiųjų, kurie sureikšmina. Ir tikrai neparduokime Lietuvos vardan procentų, populiarumų ir pensijų. Būtent, galų gale ateina laikas iš tikrųjų investuoti tai, kas yra svarbiausia, ir susitelkim visi ir darykime tai.
Jo, šiaip tiesa, aš žinau, kad mes daug laiko jau nebeturim, bet norėčiau trumpam paminėti visą šitą pensijų reikalą. Mes galime kelti tas pensijas kiek tik norite, bet vis dėlto kokios pensijos liks ar kokios išmokos beliks, kai nebus valstybės, kuri duotų vis dėlto tas pačias išmokas. Todėl reikia visų pirma ginti valstybę, ginti kraštą. Dabar jau mes galime kalbėti apie socialias programas visas ir išmokas ar panašiai. Bet visų pirma reikia ginti.
Vincentai, kartu su tavim buvom toj pačioj socialistinėje Ispanijoje. Matėm, kaip užsilenkė tinklai dėl matyt kažkokių nepadarytų reformų ar dar kažko, galbūt ir kažkokios atakos, bet socialistinė Ispanų vyriausybė yra konvulsija tų kairiųjų jėgų, kuri dalinai atspindi ir Palucko vyriausybės dramą. Tai, kad daugybė žmonių nepalaiko tos mokesčių reformos, yra iš to paties socialistinio neapsisprendimo. Tai jeigu būtų pasakyta žmonėm, kad visi tie pinigai iš tikrųjų eina gynybai, tai manau visi pasirašytų ir visi būtų balsavę. Jokių čia protestų nebūtų. Bet kada norima visko ant 2-3 kėdžių sėdėti ir įtikti visiems, taip nesigauna. Kai ateis rusai, tie mūsų pensininkai, patriotai, visi bus pastatyti prie tos pačios sienos ir kairieji, ir raudonieji, ir žalieji, ir liberalai sunaikinti. Tai išsaugokim dabar mūsų ateitį. Lietuva tobulėja fantastiškai. Žmonės grįžta čia, žmonės čia nori gyventi. Kaip ir tavo šeima grįžo, kaip ir mano vaikas grįžo iš Londono. Tai dabar išsaugokim šitą savo ateitį ir tada galėsime pasikelti ir pensijas ir susikurti dar didesnį rojų. Bet dabar tą rojų reikia tiesiog išsaugoti.
Absoliučiai. Tai užbaigiant, turėkime ryžto, turėkime drąsos ir nenuleiskime rankų, nes mes vis dėlto esame ta paskutinė valstybės gynybinė linija.
Ir neleiskime valdžiai meluoti, nes ta Gruzijos svajonė pradėjo nuo melo, nuo propagandos, nuo cinizmo. Tas, kas sklinda iš Palucko burnos, taip negražu, taip piliečiai nesielgia, jie gerbė viens kitą. Būkime drąsūs ir neleiskime jiems meluoti. Aš manau, tada valstybė saugosi.
Amen. Ačiū labai, Žygi, ir greito, nes netruks kalbėsiu su Kurtu Volkeriu, ambasadoriumi, apie Hagos viršūnių susitikimą. Taigi dar sykį, ačiū labai.
Ačiū tau, Vincentai. Iki. Oh my God, this is France, Kurt. This is wonderful. Kind of castle. What is it? Is it your castle?
It's in Provence. It's a little old home, resort / hotel in the countryside.
Oh my God. Okay. I thought this is...
I have a tie if you'd like me to put on a tie to match it.
No, that's okay. Look, we are doing it for, young people. Today in the parliament, Vincentas is bringing Baltics, Germans, we prepare new leaders to continue with Europe whole and free. That was your idea. Okay, Kurt, really, thank you so much. I was watching your statements, on different American TVs on NATO. And yesterday I went to that place where Bush landed in 2002 after Prague NATO summit. And I will immediately provoke you. I was speaking also with Dan Fried, who corrected me, Žygis. It's not only Reagan, it's also Bush the Jr. He was brave. He made that brave decision. And yesterday, Edward Lucas printed an article. Well, if NATO is about deterring, why NATO is so coward? Why NATO is afraid to say the truth? why we allow Ukraine to disappear from the agenda. We have that fight from Bucharest. It's okay, it's great, 5%, it's wonderful, thank you, Trump. But to say that NATO is great again without mentioning more or less Ukraine, you send a signal to Putin, more or less the signal we sent after Bucharest, that though one sentence was great, but all others were not so much. And Putin took it as a green light. Let's kill, let's occupy. I'm afraid of that. So anyways, what do you think?
Well, I think it's 50-50. I completely agree that if we were to be doing the right thing, just be clear about what the right thing is.
Yeah.
The right thing would be to send a clear message to Putin. He has to get out of Ukraine, that we are going to sanction his economy until he can't breathe. And we're going to give Ukraine everything it needs to push Russian forces out as quickly as possible. And we'll provide all the air defense that they need. And Putin has as Trump said on his first day in office, there's an easy way and a hard way. Easy way is just get out. Hard way is we're going to push him out. But that would be the right thing to do, and bring Ukraine into NATO immediately, with Article 5 applying to the territory that Ukraine currently controls, and then ultimately the territory that Ukraine finally controls. That would be the right thing to do. Okay, so let's just have that out clearly. Now, that's not going to happen. And it's not going to happen because people in Europe and the US, so we're not only talking about Donald Trump, but we're talking about a lot of Europeans, worry about World War III, worry about nuclear weapons, worry about confronting Putin. They don't want to go that far. We saw that in the Vilnius summit just a couple of years ago. We saw that in the Washington summit, and we see that even more now. People don't want to confront Putin. So that's the situation. In addition, you had Trump really calling into question America's commitment to NATO because of European defense spending. I think over the top, maybe he was exaggerating, maybe he meant it, but regardless, he was calling that into question. So the priority for NATO allies at this NATO summit was to make sure that we keep the U.S. committed to NATO. That was the number one job.
To keep the alliance intact.
Exactly. And I would argue that was successful. Trump's press conference, if you watched it after the NATO summit, did several things that he has never done before. He said that NATO is not a ripoff, meaning that it's a good deal. And that's a message to his MAGA base. He uses that kind of language with them. So for him to say, this is not a ripoff. These people love their countries. I'm going to help them defend them. These are very big statements. He also, when he talked about Ukraine for the first time, said Putin has to stop the war. Didn't make it both sides, didn't make it kids on a playground. He said,
if I may, Mr. Volker, you say that here Trump used harsher language, that he's asking Putin to stop the war in Ukraine, and that there's, again, as you said, the option of going either the hard way, solving it the hard way or the easy way. But words are one thing, but concrete action and steps to to stop, first of all, placating Putin and the Russians and the rest of the axis of evil in order to stop the war. I mean, we're not seeing sanctions. We're not seeing greater arms deliveries to Ukraine. We saw at that same press conference the possibility of maybe selling Patriot missile systems to Ukraine. I mean, these are the right steps needed.
Right. Let's go back to that. Let's stay on the summit for a second, because all those things about saving the transatlantic relationship and America's commitment to NATO, they were indeed really important, and I think they were accomplished. So that puts us in a good spot to begin with. Then, when it comes to Ukraine, we would have had differences between the U.S. and European allies over the relative importance of Ukraine to European security. European allies, especially you in Baltic states, Poland, Nordics, etc., you understand, and I agree, that there is no future security for Europe unless Ukraine is also secure. It's just not going to happen. Putin is on a mission to rebuild the empire, and that includes parts of the EU. So this is clear to me. Trump also said this for the first time. He said that if Putin takes Ukraine, he won't stop there. That's very important. So we didn't want to have this argument about Ukraine in a public way. We wanted to show unity. And I think Putin got that message that the U.S. is committed to NATO. There is transatlantic unity. We understand the threat, and Russia is labeled as a threat. We are increasing defense spending up to 5% of GDP. This would never have happened if he had not invaded Ukraine in 22. So he caused this massive increase in European defense expenditure. He also had just observed B-2 bombers slip in and slip out of Iran, taking out nuclear facilities without Iran even knowing. No ability of the S-300s or S-400s to react. That's going to wake Putin up a little bit too. So all of these things, I think, are good messages from the NATO summit, even though it is not doing the right things, as we talked about. It's not going that far. Now, as to the specific steps, those are indeed the things that we should be doing. We should be getting sanctions in place, squeezing the state budget of Russia, and we should be getting weaponry to Ukraine. That's clear. Regarding selling patriots, I think that misses the point. Trump has been clear from during the campaign and onward, no more taxpayer money. We're not going to send U.S. taxpayer money to Ukraine. But he has not excluded Ukraine paying its own way. And that is what this minerals deal is about. That's what loans are about. That's what the EU can do with its resources, buy weapons, send them to Ukraine. And that's sustainable politically. We don't have to go to taxpayers to convince them that this is just a reasonable deal. So I think that's good. What was significant about his comment on patriots is prioritization. That right now, if you want to go buy a new Patriot missile, you're going to wait 7 to 9 years. If you want to get Patriots right away, you're either moving them from where they're already deployed, or you're getting somebody who's already in queue higher up to push them down the list so that Ukraine can get up the list. Either one of those types of reprioritization is very significant. And it's what I took from what Trump said about patriots is that he said, okay, we're going to get them some more, meaning that's the only way you're going to get them some more. So he's going to look at how to do that.
Kurt, also trying to stay on positive, I also noticed, one thing in addition, he said something about joint drone production, because that's interesting. That's what, why Ukrainians are number one. That's where we are trying to catch up with them. And also another question to you, when I was on the Hill, and I was already 5 times on the Hill under Trump, I noticed interesting line from those even MAGA Republicans. In each meeting, I was pushing this Ukrainian invitation to NATO. An interesting line, first things first 5% arm yourself, because if Russians decide to conquer you, you will not stop them until Berlin. When you do it, we might come back to that question. So, with this revision in 29, and your EU will be moving to Ukraine to you around 2030, maybe we could build the concept, the conditions for kind of Bush decision of the new type. Okay, maybe even with new president. So I'm still hopeful to maneuver it. What do you think?
Yeah, that's a very good point, Zigis. And I had not heard that directly myself, but it makes sense because it fits with their logic. Is that we're tough, we're strong, we believe in peace through strength, etc. But we're not going to do it for you. You're going to do your share. But if you do your share, and Ukraine, of course, is spending 7% of GDP on defense, 10%, maybe more. Then they would say, okay, this is fair. We should do our part as well. That makes a lot of sense. Obviously, the 5% is not implemented now, except in Poland and Lithuania. it is to be implemented by 2035. So there will still be an argument that you've got to actually deliver. But it's a good argument. And I think it's one that with the kind of language Trump was using about NATO at this summit, you can go back to these MAGA Republicans and say, look, President Trump has said he's on board with us.
Well, if I may, I mean, this is a very good point that these 5% are yet to be implemented. Are we looking at, in your opinion, of a promised 5% that never gets implemented, like we had these promises for the same 2.5% back in Wales? What are we looking at?
Yeah, that's a great question, because I think that half of Europe thinks that. Half of Europe says, we're going to promise this now. Trump's going to be out of office after 28. We'll see what we do then. That is the way half of Europe is thinking. The other half, and I don't mean country by country, but I mean within countries, is you'll have some people within countries that I think Macron and Merz may be serious. They may actually say, you know what? We can see what Russia is doing in terms of its military buildup, and we actually need to be prepared, because we're not sure the U.S. is really going to be there. So that is where a lot of Europeans are. But I do think that the finance ministries, the socialists, the Greens, they're not really thinking 5% right now. And so it's going to be a process as we go through this, where those who are articulating the threat and watching what Russia is doing and building capabilities keep the pressure on to actually deliver.
Can I also go to the context a bit more? I think another big issue with Trump we have is like Russia. We have like,
Yes.
he's living on the other side of the moon. Some other congressman said, well, he's now going through crash course on Russia. We have that course for 1,000 years. With Poles, we're like, when we see each American president doing all those stupid mistakes, we shout and cry. We know that they will burn all the legs. And so, but I wasn't twice in White House already out of those 5 times. And some of them, like Sebastian Gorka, he said to me, guys, you are not small. You are big on your experience on Russia. Say what we have to do, bring your analysis. Do you think that might work, Kurt, if we, I don't know, not maybe only with Russian dissidents, with our own brains, we come with the best European brains and we start thinking Russia, like, I don't know, Jews convinced to attack Iran? Because I want America to annihilate last empire that kills. Because when I see Kellogg embracing Lukashenko, I saw it already. This is so sorry to make it so strong, but it's stupid. When I see it, I understand that Lukashenko and Putin might drive Trump administration. They might penetrate. And this is a threat to us because we are next. So instead of annihilating an enemy, they are just falling into marriage with them.
Yeah.
Do you think can we stop it, or it's impossible?
Well, I think sometimes we do things without knowing how it's going to turn out. And in this case, we have to just keep explaining, making the case, pushing, demonstrating that Russia is Russia, Putin is Putin. This is not going to change. They do not want peace. They will not live side by side in harmony with Ukrainians. They want to eliminate Ukraine. They believe that the Baltic states were taken away from them, that they are part of Russia. Same thing with Finland, same thing with parts of Poland. We just have to keep explaining and demonstrating that. There is no evidence to the contrary. So I know Trump would like to find some evidence to the contrary and say, well, I don't know, maybe it's complicated. There really isn't. I think he'll be the last one to change his mind. But we have members of Congress, members of the Senate, media, both political parties, experts. Everybody sees Russia as it is. He doesn't want to, because he wants to get peace. He wants to do business deals. He wants to make money. And that's the case here of continuously making the case, explaining to Trump, explaining to the administration that Russia's Russia, Putin is Putin. They're not going to change. They are not going to live in peace with their neighbors. Putin believes that he's on a sacred mission to restore the Russian Empire. And that includes countries like the Baltic states and Finland and parts of Poland. He believes they belong as part of Russia. So we just have to keep going over this and over this and over this. Trump doesn't want to hear it because he wants to be seen as a peacemaker and he wants to make money. But he just has to be convinced there's no other way. And it was interesting at the summit, if you saw it, Marco Rubio was asked a question about, sanctions. What are you going to go ahead with the secondary sanctions now? And his answer was really revealing, because he said, well, now's not the time. If we apply these sanctions, then there's no hope for a peace agreement. That, I think, reflects President Trump's thinking, which is why Rubio felt comfortable saying it. But it is the opposite of what is true, is that as long as he feels relaxed, no pressure, no sanctions, no pressure on his budget, he has no reason to stop the war. He's going to continue. And it is only once he sees that there is firm pushback that's going to harm him and harm Russia, then he might actually stop. So the fact that Rubio said that was quite revealing, because I think it tells you a bit about the way Trump is thinking still. And that is what we have to try to change.
I agree with you. And one of the congressmen, old friends, said more or less the same. If we use it now, we are using our last resort, last instrument. And I said, no, guys, if you use it, you have maybe chance to get him back to negotiations, because economy is crawling. You push him down the hill and maybe it will work. Can I just, my last question, Vincent, if you
Absolutely.
On the context, I'm now receiving message by message. Like right now, one of the best friends, Giri Targamadze, is being imprisoned. The best enemy of Putin and Lukashenko, who contributed to different protests, even in Russia, Orange Revolution. He was helping us with democratic forces. Georgians are being put to prison. And some people say if we do nothing, like in a half a year, it will be another Belarus. You've been always in Tbilisi conference, you've been always there. Can we save Georgia the way we actually started it all?
It is absolutely incredible what is happening in Georgia now. They're arresting all of the opposition political leaders. They are shutting down all of the civil society. They've put in place rules that will allow them to censor media. It is absolutely incredible what they're doing. And they're doing it brazenly. They're doing it without any fear. And I think that, and we've talked about this before, Zigis, but I think that the Izina Ivanishvili is deathly afraid of Putin. He believes that if he does not keep Georgia on side with Russia, that they will come and kill him. And so he's given a green light to the Georgian dream, just close down this democracy. That is really shocking. And I think the only way we deal with this, yes, of course, we should be speaking up more about it. We should be communicating better and more directly to the Georgian people, to the messages to the Georgian dream. We have to look at things like sanctions, but the thing that will make a difference is actually stopping Putin in Ukraine. If Putin is winning in Ukraine, and that is the perception in the Georgian dream, then they continue in their fear. Where they are partially occupied, no ability to fight back against Russia, not part of NATO, not part of the EU. If Putin is winning, they don't want to all be killed. So we have to stop Putin in Ukraine. We have to end that and give some space for Georgia to become normal again.
So we come to the same conclusion as ever when talking about Russia and the axis of evil. If we stop Russia, if we completely neuter them of all power and all destructive capability, then most bad things in the world get fixed.
That is true. The Axis is only an axis in Putin's mind. China is not really committed to Russia. Iran is not capable and not committed to Russia. And look at what just happened. Putin did not save Assad, lost his own base in Syria. He did not save Iran. He's not giving anything to Iran as Iran is being attacked and trying to survive. He's given some missile technology to North Korea, but nothing has really changed there. He has nothing to offer China except sell cheap energy, which China can buy anyway. So this whole axis thing is Putin wanting to make himself look bigger and scarier. It's not really an axis, and Russia has very little to give.
Yeah, and I agree. If we keep pushing, on Russia and we keep Ukrainians winning, we didn't mention Moldova. Next week, I'm in Moldova trying to lobby in all those little villages and regions for people to elect again more European forces, because in September, it's like in balance, like recently in Romania, Armenians are trying to push their way forward to Europe, first time ever, and Belarusians, they don't want another deal, of Americans with Lukashenko. They still keep fighting, and if we just fix it in Ukraine, this is the dream of Bush the father. It's a Reagan, Europe whole and freeze, and this is American dream.
That's right. I totally agree. It all hinges around that. Well, if you go to Moldova, I think the most important message to the voters, particularly the Russian-speaking voters in the Northeast, it's that it's not only about energy and cheap prices, it's about lifestyle. You will never have a free, prosperous, good life for yourself and your families until Moldova is in the European Union. So don't just think about the immediate, this election and this, price of energy or shut off from Russian gas. Think about the real future, about what your lifestyle is going to be like.
Absolutely. And, compare us to Belarus. Belarus is 3 times bigger than us, 10 million. And the economy already is 3 times less than ours. We are 3 times bigger, and we never lived like that. Lithuanians for 5 years already returning back to Lithuania, like Vincentas, his family, like my own son from London. It's better to live here, and this is supposed to be you and NATO.
That's right. And this will happen with Ukraine too. The moment that Ukraine is peaceful, it will grow very quickly, and Ukrainians want to go home and be part of that. So all this commentary, those Ukrainians, their kids are in school in Western Europe, they're never going home. I don't believe it.
Exactly. Okay, Kurt. Thank you so much for staying.
My pleasure. Thank you.
For us. It was, during the most difficult times, even during Obama administration, Kurt was coming to Vilnius and always pushing for Europe whole and free. You did it so well with Bush, and I think we will still do it with the next American president if we're not successful with this one. So
I agree with
that.
Yes, I agree with that, and I hope that we have a Bush-like Republican next time.